Hi everyone, welcome back to the Etymon Project. Today I'm going to be going over another NACLO problem. This one was also a request from kind of a long time ago, so I'm really sorry that I'm only getting to it now. And even after the open round, I hope that went well for everyone. Hopefully you moved on to the Invitational, but even if you didn't, don't worry, you can still try again next year. But yeah, hopefully this will be helpful just in general, even if the main competition has already passed. So I'm very sorry about that. But yeah, so we're going over generally speaking, which is problem D from the open round of 2024. And this problem has like a lot of pages to it, like 4 different pages. So I have like the split screen here to try and have like the information that I need on this side. And then I'll have like my writing on this side. So hopefully that'll be easy to kind of follow along and see what I'm working on. So yeah, let's just get started. So the topic of this problem is generalization, which is when you can kind of observe that a sentence is grammatical, even if you've never seen that exact sentence before. So you're kind of generalizing the sentence into your own like sense of grammar. It's not like language has to be specifically correct to be right. You can kind of generalize whether a sentence will be grammatical or not. So in this problem, we have 4 computers that are going to be like learning from some data, and this is our data right here. And then the computers have never seen any English sentences before, so these are the only sentences that they have access to, and the only thing they learn is that all of the 17 sentences are grammatical. So that's kind of the premise of our problem here, and you can kind of look through this training set of sentences. I'll have them right here while we're doing the problem. And now they're showing the computers 21 more sentences, which are listed on the table next page, so right here. And for each sentence, we're going to ask the computer whether it thinks the sentence is grammatical or ungrammatical. And then the answers are recorded, and they also have human answers like right here. So we have this table, and problem number 1 is some cells in this table are empty, and we're going to have to provide the missing entries. So these cells kind of down here, a lot of those are empty, so we'll be taking a look at those. And yeah, the way I would start with this problem is I would kind of go, I guess, through each computer just to see kind of how it's analyzing the sentences. So if we look at C1 first, we can kind of look at which ones it's calling grammatical and which ones it's calling ungrammatical. And C1 only seems to be calling these 3 sentences up here grammatical. So it's very selective with what it calls grammatical, you could say. So it's very specific. And if we look over here to see if there's any connections between the sentences that this computer says are grammatical and the sentences that we gave it, these are the exact sentences that we gave it. We have the main detective visited the ballerina, the linguist is tall, and the cartoonist saw the spy. So we can kind of conclude that this computer will only call sentence grammatical if it's seen that exact sentence before. So we can come down here and see if these sentences exist in our training set. And the detective met the yodeler, that's right there. The spy is talented, we don't have that. And the programmer met the cartoonist, we don't have that either. So our answer is going to be grammatical, ungrammatical, ungrammatical. So hopefully that makes sense. That one is pretty straightforward. And yeah, let's move on to computer number 2. So for computer number 2, but it seems to call these top few sentences grammatical. So if we look and try to compare these sentences to the ones that we have for the training set, we can see obviously the first 3, we know that we already told the computer that they were grammatical. So we can mainly focus on like these 4 down here. So if we compare these 4 sentences with the ones we have right here, we can see that we have a lot of similar elements. Like we have sentence number 21, the linguist visited the spy. We have like a linguist here and a spy here. So it like makes sense in the context of what the computer might understand to be grammatical. For the main concierge saw the blacksmith, we have like main as a describing word for a subject, and we also have the blacksmith as an object. And we also have a concierge as a subject, so that seems to make sense. So again, we have all of those like elements in the right spots. So we could be figuring out a theory that the computer number 2 is focused mainly on like whether the certain parts of the sentences are in the right orders, whether they can be subjects or objects or describing words for subject, etc. And we can keep going to see if this is still true. We have a ballerina as a subject here, and we have asleep as a word you can describe something as. So that would align with sentence 23. And for 24, a cartoonist can be a subject here, and a programmer can be an object here. So that seems to make sense. And now we can double check our theory by looking at the ungrammatical ones. So we're going to be focused on these sentences right here and trying to see if they also fit this pattern of having the right words as subjects and having the right words as objects, or if there's something else wrong with it that might make the computer say that it's ungrammatical. So if we check the first one, the word woodcarver, the woodcarver visited the programmer, and we check where woodcarver appears in these training set, we can see that woodcarver only appears as an object. And if you don't know these words that I'm saying, like subject and object, the subject is what's doing the action, and then this is like the verb, the action, and then the object is like whatever is receiving the action, or like what is the recipient of the action. So as we can see, the woodcarver is only a object in the training set, but over here in the sentence it's actually a subject, so that could be what is making this computer say that it's ungrammatical. And if we continue on to the next sentence, the linguist saw the haberdasher. The linguist can be a subject as we see here, but the haberdasher, if we check where it appears, we can see that it only appears as a subject and never appears as an object. So the computer could be saying like that the haberdasher can't be an object. And if we continue to the next one, the famous concierge visited the watchmaker. We have concierge in subject here. We have watchmaker only as a subject. So again, that would probably make the computer say that it's ungrammatical in the same way. Then we can check the linguist is cheerful. We have linguist as a subject as we've seen, but cheerful we only have as a describing word for a subject. We don't have any sentences that are the structure of the linguist is cheerful or the spy is cheerful. We don't have cheerful in this position. We only have it as a word that would go right here. So that is a violation of the pattern. So it would make sense if the computer doesn't think that's grammatical either. The next one, the calligrapher, watchmaker, visited, met. That's not going to be grammatical because none of those words are in the correct order that these training sentences provide. There's like 2 verbs in a row. We have visited, met, which never occurs over here. We also have calligrapher, watchmaker, so there's a lot of things that break the pattern here. Same with the next sentence, the knowledgeable, cheerful, talented. 3 adjectives in a row is obviously not in the training set. So it would make sense that the computer also says that is not grammatical. So going off of that information, we can kind of see that computer 2 is thinking about whether the subjects of these sentences are also subjects in these training sentences. And so on with the objects, so on with the adjectives, the positions of the adjectives, and also like the verbs, I guess, in the last few sentences, but mostly focusing on whether these words can be subjects or objects or like one or the other. So with that, we can figure out 31. The tall detective saw the ballerina. We have detectives as a subject, we have ballerina as an object, but we don't have tall in the correct position that we would need. So we're going to say that the computer would probably call this ungrammatical. Okay, and moving on to the next sentence, the linguist saw the yodeler. What we're going to want to do is look over the training set and see if we have linguist as a subject, and we do. Then we check if we have yodeler as an object, and we also do, so we can label this one as grammatical as well. For the next sentence, the visited, met, linguist, programmer. This is another one that's kind of like the last 2 of the sentences that we already have marked. and it's going to be ungrammatical because these words are just not in the right order that you would see in the training set. Again, there's like two verbs and two nouns together, so we're also going to label this one as ungrammatical. For sentence 34, the yodeler met the woodcarver, we're going to want to check if yodeler is a subject, and we see that it is only used as an object in the training set, so already we know that this sentence is going to be ungrammatical as well. For the watchmaker is famous, we can see that we have subject watchmaker, and we also have famous in the right position, so we're going to go ahead and mark this one as grammatical. Okay, and then for the next one, the detective met the yodeler, we actually have this exact sentence over here in the training set, so we can go ahead and just automatically say that that's grammatical because everything is in the right order already. Next, for the spy is talented, we have spy as a subject right over here, and we have talented as only a adjective in the first position in the training set, so this one is not going to be grammatical because there's a difference in where the talented is able to be, so we can go ahead and say that that's going to be ungrammatical. And then finally, for the programmer met the cartoonist, if we check the training set, we can see we have programmer in the right spot, but unfortunately we only have cartoonist as a subject over here, so this is also going to be ungrammatical. And now moving on to computer number 4, if we kind of just look through and see what it's labeling as grammatical, it just seems to be kind of labeling everything as grammatical. So this computer is definitely overgeneralizing, but it seems like maybe a theory we could have for what it calls grammatical is just like any kind of word that is in the training set. If it's also used in a sentence over here, then it can be considered grammatical, which is definitely an overgeneralization, but we can just follow the pattern and label the rest of these as grammatical as well because there doesn't really seem to be anything different about these last 3 sentences compared to the others. And yeah, that'll be our solution to part 1. Okay, and now moving on to problem D2, we see that we have a table with some more sentences along with C2 and C3's judgments for those sentences right here. In each sentence, we have a hidden word that's replaced with like this string hidden word 1, and we have to figure out what each hidden word stands for, choosing from these options of asleep, happy, and main, and they're each going to sub in for one of these hidden words, and we're only going to use each of them once, and each hidden word is like the same word in all the sentences that it appears in. So we can first remind ourselves of what each of these computers does. So if we check computer 3, we didn't actually really look at that one before, but if you scroll up and look at computer 3 and compare it to the human column, you'll see that they're all the same. So computer 3 is basically just the human sense of like what is grammatical. So it's probably not going to be as helpful. It might be better to look at C2, especially since it has these ungrammatical labels that we can kind of look at. And if we remember, C2 is the computer that has to have all of the subjects as subjects in the training set, all of the objects as objects in the training set, and all of the adjectives in the correct position, and all of the adjectives in like the right positions. So we can start by looking at this first 2 sentences. The watchmaker is hidden word 1, and the hidden word 1 concierge visited the astronaut. And computer 2 labels both of these as grammatical. So we can go over here and try and figure out which adjective appears in both the first and second positions out of asleep, happy, and main. So if we look at asleep, we see we have it in the second position. We have main in these first 2 positions, and then we have happy in the first and last position. So happy is the only one that appears in both the first and last position, which means that hidden word 1 has to be happy because C2 is going to label those both as grammatical. And moving on to these next 2 sentences for hidden word 2, the computer number 2 labels the first one as ungrammatical, where the adjective is in the second half of the sentence. So that means that the training set cannot have that word in the second half of the sentences. And we have asleep in the second half, but we don't have main. we only have main in the first position. So we're going to say that this is main. And then for the next two sentences, the watchmaker is hidden word 3, and the hidden word 3 concierge visited the astronaut. This one just has to be asleep because it's the last option, but it also makes sense because C2 labels this last sentence as ungrammatical, and asleep we only have as in the second position here, but this word is in the first position, so that actually makes sense. So we'll add in asleep. Okay, problem D3 is not entirely necessary. It's kind of just like your own thoughts, and it's kind of just like they want to see your own judgments on the problem. Like, think about what your own labels would be, and how many are there where C2 produced the same labels, how many are there where C3 produced the same label. And we can kind of see that C3 is not exactly as perfect as we thought, or as close to the human as we thought, because we wouldn't really say the sentence, the watchmaker is main. So just something to think about and revising our previous assumptions. And yeah, this is just some more information about over and under generalization that's going to be helpful in the next part, but I think I might move this towards a part 2 video. It'll be probably pretty short, but I think this video is kind of long already, so yeah, I'll do D4 in the next part, so see you there. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed.